Grief has its own very unique timeline. It can look different for everybody else, and everybody experiences it in their own unique way. Joining me in this series on grief is my beautiful friend, Megan Rolog. Now, Megan has experienced immense grief through the loss of their baby girl, Lyla, during childbirth. And to hear Megan's full story, please watch the first video in this series called 4 Steps to Heal from Grief. Now, since Megan has had her own story of grief, she has learned a lot, she's been counseled a lot, and she has multiple great tips to share on how to get out of the trenches when you are deep where grief is covering you. And our prayer and hope is if you are currently grieving, or if you have a friend or family member who is currently in the grieving process, that this video will help you right where you are at. So Megan, can you walk us through what were some of the top things that really helped you when you were deep in the trenches of grief after you lost Lyla?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things I really had to do and to work on was removing guilt. When you lose somebody that you love, you oftentimes will live in the past. You'll live, what could I have done? What should I have done? You'll relive some maybe bad conversations, and maybe some guilt comes up, or you're feeling joy and you're feeling guilty because you're not in this place of darkness. I found that when I was so deep and sad that I almost felt more connected to her. And I was thinking, if I'm happier, I'm going to lose that connection. But I realized if I removed that guilt of having joy, that my loss and my grief can coincide with happiness and joy. So just trying to work through that guilt, because guilt doesn't serve any purpose unless it's correcting a bad behavior and you didn't do anything wrong. Yeah. So just try to remove that guilt is probably it was very important to me.
Yeah, I think that's so good, because I feel like so many times too, after somebody loses someone, they think, I wish I could have, or I wish I had never. You almost start to think that way immediately. So I love that concept of removing the guilt, because first of all, it doesn't help anybody, and it's not going to help your healing either.
Right. And another thing that was very helpful for me, I was facing a lot of anxiety about going out to public, running into people maybe I haven't seen. A lot of people would approach me and be, very tearful and telling me they're sorry. And I just didn't know how to respond. Am I supposed to cry every time I see them, even though I'm having a good day? And so I really had to prep for hard questions. I was feeling anxious going to the hairdresser or the doctor. People asking me, hey, how many kids do you have? Do you have any children? And that would catch me off guard, and it would make me cry and feel sad, and it could really turn my day around. So I would advise you to prep for hard questions. And how I did this was I literally wrote down every single question somebody could have said to me out in public or asked me, and I wrote them down, and I had practiced my responses. So if I saw somebody and they said something to me, I was prepared, and I still use them today. So I would just suggest prepping for hard questions. The next thing would be tell people what helps. People aren't mind readers. If something is going to work for you or if it's not, you have to be honest and vulnerable with yourself. I know this is hard after going through a loss, but it's so important. People aren't going to know how to help you. For me, it was talking about my daughter, talking about my labor, talking about my experience and how I was feeling, but that might look differently to you. But just be open and honest, and that way other people can help you in whatever way you see fit.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And I'll tell you firsthand from being your friend and walking with you when this happened, when you openly told us, hey, these are the things that will help me. And by the way, I like talking about Lyla, because I think sometimes on the outsider's perspective, you're not sure if you should say the name or bring it up again. Right. And also what was helpful is when I knew Megan likes to talk about Lyla, I could then tell Chad, my husband. Sure. It's if you and Matt came over, I could be like, hey, Chad, just so you know, they like talking about Lyla. We don't have to not say her name or worry about saying something else. So that was just so extremely helpful for us too, that you did that.
And the other thing is you're going to need support. Find it. For me, I seeked out a counselor or a therapist, whatever it looks like to you. Maybe it's a good friend or a Facebook group. Find those connections and find a way to find support because you're going to need it. Going through a loss is hard enough on its own. You don't need to make it harder by doing it alone. You know, people love and support you and they're here to help. So utilize the resources that you have.
Yeah, that's so good. And, you know, I really encourage you to, if you are in the trenches of grief, to go see a grief counselor like what Megan did, because it can help you significantly in that area of life. And it's not a bad thing. You're not weak by doing that. It actually shows a lot of strength and courage.
Yes, I remember my first counseling session. I cried the entire time I called to schedule the appointment. I cried the entire time I sat in the lobby, and I cried my entire first appointment. But as I continued to go, I just got stronger and more resilient, and I was able to just go in there confidently and learn more about myself and my healing process.
Yeah.
The next thing I have written down is to manifest, pray, dream, vision. This really helped me to look forward to something and to think positively. I would actually, every night, I would close my eyes and I would envision myself sitting in my rocking chair and holding a healthy baby. I would imagine myself singing to this baby, and I would imagine what it felt like, what the baby smelled like, and what it looked like. And that really helped me have something to look forward to. And it kind of changed my mindset again to just visualize this positive thing happening in my life. A lot of times, especially after you lose somebody, you know, you have death kind of on the forefront of your mind, like, oh, this bad thing can happen, this is going to happen again. But when you visualize something positive, that can really change how you approach things. So instead of thinking of what can go wrong, maybe think of what can go right. And that was really healing for my heart.
Yeah. You know, I remember too when you were pregnant with Pierce, your little boy. We both had little boys named Pierce, which is awesome. But you would put like words and phrases all over your house.
Yes.
You're like, I am strong. I will deliver this baby. I have a healthy baby. And you just like really reinforce truth and positivity over and over again.
Yeah,
so I thought that was so awesome.
Yeah, that was important to me. I put words of affirmation literally all over my entire house, on my refrigerator, in the mirror, and I would say these words until I believed them. And it helped me, it just changed my mindset, helped me to approach things in a positive fashion and to, believe what I was saying to myself. The next thing I have is avoid things that can trigger you. When you go through this loss, there are things that are going to be hard for you to deal with and things that really upset you. So in the very beginning, just avoid them. You know your limitations, and that's okay if you're not able to go to an event or do something. Just speak up for yourself. For me, it was avoiding baby showers. Still, it's something that can kind of trigger me, so I have to be aware of my feelings and how I'm doing that day, but definitely avoid anything that's going to trigger you.
Yeah, that's so good, Megan. You know, if these tips helped Megan to get out of the trenches of her grief, they can help you too. And, you know, and one thing that I might add as well is to create boundaries, because not everybody needs to know and not everybody needs to understand what you're going through. You have the choice who you want to let in or not. And that's okay. So ladies, your challenge this week is to share your story of grief with a trusted source, or meet up with a friend or a family member to share a funny or a happy story from a loved one who is no longer here, because it can be so incredibly healing for you and it can help you get out of the trenches of grief.